Right, welcome to Bet the Edge. I'm Jay Croucher here with Drew Dinsick. Today we're going to talk about the NFL Divisional Round, specifically Ravens at Bills. The big one, we'll talk about potential teaser options for the weekend, live betting strategies into these games, and then close out with our best bets. Let's start off with Ravens -1 at Buffalo. The total is 51.5. Sunday, 3 p.m. Eastern. Drew, how have your thoughts changed about this game throughout the week, and who do you think is going to win?
I think the Ravens are going to win. I have kind of staked my future book on the Ravens winning this game. I know that is far from the finish line, but to me at least, this is the one where I have had the kind of the hardest time convincing myself that there is a huge clear edge here for the Ravens, and it really just comes down to the fact that Josh Allen is a Terminator, and he could do enough in the closing moments to decide this game in favor of Buffalo, particularly with the home support. My kind of general feeling still is that the Ravens have the more complete team. You don't really need to do much to kind of gloss their offense. It's well understood at this point that they have multiple ways they can beat you. Not expecting Zay Flowers to be available, but if he is, that would be a nice surprise. And I think the Ravens just in general have the kind of multiplicity and kind of scheme that fits well to really hurt this Bills defense. I know the first time these two teams played, the Bills defense was broadly injured, and now they are much healthier. And I know that through the middle and end stretch of the season, the Bills defense was a little bit of a punching bag. They were getting picked on by the likes of the Patriots. I think they obviously turned things around to close the season, followed by a pretty impressive performance against the Broncos in what was, of course, Bo Nix's first ever playoff start. So take that with a grain of salt. But I think the Ravens defense is still a little bit on the come up. Their rush defense, certainly on paper, stands out as one of the better units in football. And the pass defense has had an arc where at the beginning of the season, it wasn't especially impressive, and it's gotten better and better and better through the balance until a little bit of a squirrely second half against Russell Wilson. But I'm willing to let that slide. I think the general kind of matchup that makes me the most excited for this game is really Buffalo's rushing offense and their offensive line against the Ravens' rushing defense. If you take Josh Allen's scrambles out of the picture and you just consider what Cook has meant to the Bills offense in terms of keeping them on schedule, keeping down and distance achievable, and just being an explosive playmaker in his own right. I think that's been sort of the quiet, unheralded story of the Bills' success this year beyond Josh Allen being a hero. And if the offensive line with the home support can get the same type of blocking lanes that they've been able to create all season against this very good rush defense, then not only can the Bills succeed offensively in this game, but they could potentially even play keep away, which I think is kind of important to them winning. Ultimately, I think that the Ravens are a little bit more prone to the turnover. They are a little bit more prone to picking up unfortunate penalties, and they are a little bit less capable from the signal we have this regular season of performing in comeback mode. And so as a Ravens supporter and backer here, I am hopeful that they are able to play with a lead. I'm hopeful that they have a clean game from a penalty standpoint, and I'm hoping they win that battle with the very, very capable offensive line for Buffalo. Ultimately, this game sets up very similar to KC Buffalo from a few years ago, where it really just felt like those two quarterbacks were performing at a level that was so sublime that there was just nothing you could do to stop them when they needed to score at the end of the game. And that very well could manifest here. I think that just in general, staring at a way into this particular market, because I have so much equity already staked on the Ravens, I have to look total. And I think that in general, with the two best quarterbacks performing at the best level of their career at the same time in the same game, 51.5 feels a little light.
How real do you think the Ravens' pass defense improvement over the second half of the season was, and how will that manifest in this game?
It's $1 million question. I don't know that, and it's not the $1 million question for this game. That's the $1 million question for Ravens Super Bowl, really. This matchup doesn't necessarily expose them to outstanding skill position players, but it exposes them to the other best quarterback in football. Next week, presumably, if they draw the Chiefs, it exposes them to the other best quarterback in football. And then in the presumably in the Super Bowl, you're going to be up against either the Monstars from Detroit or the Monstars from Philly, with a quarterback and an offensive coordinator and offensive scheme that's pretty solid. So I think ultimately the Ravens pass defense is the one glaring spot that I'm going to be the most nervous about between now and early February. And if you just say, how real is it? The reason I'm not like banging the table saying it's real is because the quarterbacks they faced over that stretch really have not covered themselves in glory. When Russell Wilson gets what he wants, when all you need to do is probably stop him once or twice in the third quarter and that game is over, it does kind of cause it brings you to to challenge your beliefs, I think. And the specific cornerback play is good, not great. The safety play has been great at times, questionable at times, and the linebacking core, while amazing in run stop, can be beat through the air. So I think at the end, we're talking about a unit that pass defense wise is probably middle of the pack, but on a bad day can look bad, and on a good day can look great.
Indeed. Yeah. I need the Bills in this game, but I'm not feeling it. Okay. This Sunday, the Rams and Eagles look to get one step closer to lifting the Lombardi Trophy. Coverage of the NFC Divisional Round battle in Philadelphia begins at 2 p.m. Eastern, only on NBC and Peacock. All right. Teaser options, Drew. We have 3 games in between 6 and 9.5. Then we have the Ravens game. As you mentioned, Ravens 1-point favorites. Not much of a teaser better, so I'll defer to you here. Do you think there's any method or angle of attack that is particularly prudent with these matchups?
Yeah, so last week was easier, obviously. There were some long legs, and they all covered. This week, you really only have one potential long leg in Kansas City, and depending on where you do your betting, that might not even be true. And so I guess the preference for me is to really explore, can you extract just flat out math value from a 7-point teaser this week compared to your traditional 6? 6-point teasers, if you're playing 110, 115, the math works out pretty cleanly that you capture enough just raw expectation of win by doing that synthetic parlay, that if you're crossing 3, and really if you're crossing 7 and 3, then you're home free. So this is long been sort of a way to kind of pad the accounts over the balance of a season and betting NFL lines, because it's such an efficient market and the value of 3 is so phenomenal. When it gets to the playoffs, you would think that the margins get a little tighter, the market's a little sharper. I mean, certainly, like, we didn't say it out loud during that Bills-Ravens game, but if you think that the market is just flat out wrong, you need to teach me something, because like these are very, very known quantities. And I think if you feel like you have a healthy edge in that game, it's probably more of just a gut feeling than anything numerical. So when you go from a 6-point teaser to a 7-point teaser, we're talking about going from, say, like 110, 115 to something more like 140, which means that you need to be still kind of, you need to be capturing more to make it valuable. And what I would look at is specifically if you put together synthetic parlays of Bills 2.5, Chiefs 2.5, Lions 2.5, right? Which is effectively what you would get for teasing. Actually it would be Chiefs in this case. At MGM would be Chiefs 1.5, Lions 2.5. If you do a 7-point teaser, that's going to math out to be in your favor to pay the -140. Similarly, teasing the Bills from 1 to 8 is going to math out in your favor. And so there actually are, in my opinion, at least 3 viable legs for 7-point teasers this week at the fair price of -140. And so I would just urge anyone who's sort of kind of used to just clicking the long legs and teasing 6 and looks at the board this week and says, well, nothing I can do this week except, maybe if you have the option of leaving an open teaser, it does seem fun to tease the Chiefs this week down past 3 and then have an open spot to tease the Chiefs next week up past 7, which would be just a fun bet in general. But a lot of people don't have that option. So we'll just kind of key on the idea of if you can find a 7-point teaser that costs -140, there's math advantage to at least 3 legs this week, in my opinion.
Okay. Are you worried about the scope for Baltimore to potentially just blow out Buffalo like they did last time?
I thought long and hard about that. And the recent opportunities for teams to blow out the Bills and just have games be non-competitive, the Bills have been much more capable in comeback mode than I ever thought was possible. And when they got blasted by, both Baltimore and Houston also got the better of them earlier in the season, and they just looked like I guess Houston only lost by 3, but for large portions of that game they were like well behind. But particularly that Baltimore loss, it felt like without explosive weapons in the passing game, how is this team ever going to come back from a 2-score deficit? Like, are these just play from ahead bullies? But then you kind of dig in a little bit in that Rams game in particular. Every time they needed to come up with a score in comeback mode, they were able to do it. Now, ultimately, they come up a hair short there. But I guess the general thought is, with the Ravens unable to convincingly put away the Steelers last week, combined with the Bills kind of proving over the latter portion of the season that they have, an ability to come back on teams. I think the chances for a Ravens blowout are more slim. Now, the other side of the equation, which I kind of want to point out, is, does it make sense to put the Lions in here? We didn't mention it when we handicapped Lions Commanders, but these 2 teams are going to be pretty high variance because of the 4th down decision making, which means that's not your standard 9.5-point favorite. The tails of Commanders winning, Lions blowout are more likely than your standard game, just because of the variance created by going forward on 4th down. And honestly, the success with which the Commanders are capable of converting 4th downs has really kept me from making a bet on the Lions, if we're being honest. So yeah, I think for the most part, the chances for a non-compete from the Bills or the Ravens, I think, is pretty small.
Okay. Let's pivot to live betting these games. Do you think there is any particular game state or angle that may arise live that makes any of these positions compelling?
Yeah. Let's key on the Commanders Lions game, because that's the one that I have the least pre-flop stake in. I'm going to be largely looking for opportunities to get into that game with a live over position if there is some early lack of success on 4th down. Some coaches, if the 4th down doesn't work the first time they try it early in the game, they lose their confidence, and that didn't work, not going for that again. I don't think you can say that even remotely is true for either Dan Quinn or Dan Campbell. And so the likelihood that they just continue to press and that there's continued aggression with the decision-making and the coaching, to me, sets up for, if this is a little bit of a cagey match early on, and this this current total of 55.5 comes down to, say, something that's in the 40s, I see enough red zone success for the Lions and enough just general drive success for the Commanders to believe that they could still get that there in an abbreviated game, with just based on the fact that these two offenses are so good and they have so many positive matchups. So, I would be looking for a live entry on an over that's a little deflated in that Lions Commanders game, and that may come at halftime. I'm especially inclined to back Lions second half in that game if it's close or if the Lions are behind, just because as we talked about, the arc of offensive vision that Ben Johnson brings to the table, to me, is going to allow the Lions second half success to be pretty glorious, regardless of game state. The other game state that I'm kind of key on is what do we do if the Eagles are having lots of success early against this Rams team? Does that margin just grow? Are the Rams in any way rostered for a comeback on the road here against an Eagles team that deploys a too high shell? To me, the answer is no. So I think the Eagles as an in-play bet, laying the points, expecting that a Rams comeback is pretty marginal is another live angle that I'll be looking for. And then lastly, in the Texans-Chiefs game, that total's pretty low, and for good reason. If the scripted portion for the Chiefs is solid and the Texans get out to any kind of a hot start, and just in general, if you've been betting the Chiefs long enough, second half Chiefs under with the lead is always an angle that is at the front of my brain.
Yep. Very conservative to a fault, Mr. Reed, when he can play with a lead, particularly in the playoffs. All right, what's the biggest names in sports talk, including Mike Florio, Dan Patrick, Dan Lebitard, and Matthew Berry, as they cover the biggest moments on and off the field each weekday on the NBC Sports Now channel. It is available on Peacock and free on most streaming platforms. Learn more at nbcsports.com/now.
As you all know by now, we've teamed up with BetMGM this season. We'll be using BetMGM lines to make all our picks, and we'll have special offers for our listeners each week. If you haven't signed up to BetMGM yet, use bonus code BETEDGE, and you'll get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how it works. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using bonus code BETEDGE. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you'll receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your first bet loses. Just make sure you use bonus code BETEDGE when you sign up. See BetMGM.com for terms. 21 plus only. U.S. promotional offers not available in New York, Nevada, Ontario, or Puerto Rico. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Available in the U.S. Call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369 in New York. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP in Arizona, 1-800-327-5050 in Massachusetts, 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa, 1-800-981-0023 in Puerto Rico. First bet offer for new customers only, subject to eligibility requirements. Rewards are non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire in 7 days in partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel. Don't forget, if you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code BETEDGE and get your $1,500 first bet offer today.
Okay, let's close out with favorite bets for the divisional round. I will kick us off. I'm taking Travis Kelce over 52.5 receiving yards. I think that the market is adjusting the Chiefs up based on the idea that they have an extra gear in the playoffs. And I think that that is perfectly reasonable, but a big part of that extra gear is that Travis Kelce gets more weaponized. Last year, he had an underwhelming regular season, then turned it on in the playoffs where he averaged 89 yards per game. He went 70 plus in all 4 playoff games. So 52.5, I just think is very low for Kelce. Also, when I think about how this game will play out, I envision that there will be a lot of quick game, a lot of Mahomes, like 2.4 seconds time to throw to nullify or mitigate the pass rush from Anderson and Hunter. Kelce didn't go over this number when they played the Texans last time, but he did see 7 targets. His last game of the regular season, he had 11 targets, 8 receptions, 84 yards, and a touchdown against the Steelers as he's getting ramped up a bit. So I just think that there are a lot of reasons to believe in Kelce. I think also when you think about how well Lassiter and Stingley played on the boundary. I think that the way to attack the Texans is quickly and over the middle, and Travis Kelce is a pretty good method to do that. So I think that Kelce will get at least 53 receiving yards. What is your best bet, Drew?
Well, you convinced me on that one. That's a very compelling case. I'm going to go with the Philadelphia Eagles, and I'm going to lay the 6 points against the LA Rams. A lot of things that I feel like you can kind of point to here as far as why the Eagles match up pretty ideally against this Rams team. The Rams tend to succeed defensively when they can generate pressure on the interior in particular, and not expecting that against a very stout Eagles offensive line that's playing at home. Similarly, the Rams defense in the back half has been exposed pretty aggressively when they've gone up against elite wide receiver duos, and that is exactly what the Eagles are bringing to the table in a healthy dose this week, on top of the fact that Saquon Barkley was just an absolute menace the last time these two teams played. So the Eagles offense, I think, is going to look much more like a smooth, kind of a smoothly oiled machine as opposed to the clunky version we saw last week against the Packers. And then the Eagles defense, I think, is the ideal system that you want to stop Sean McVay and Matt Stafford. For a lot of the reasons that Stafford and company have looked amazing at times this season, it has come at the hands of relatively aggressive blitzing defenses that put their cornerbacks on a bit of an island. That is the opposite of what Vic Fangio is trying to do. He is capable of generating pressure with this front four alone. He's capable of stopping the run with this front four alone. And for those reasons, the pass defense is able to really kind of literally put a lid on, what on paper looks like a good receiving core, but I have questions about health and effectiveness of all of these guys, even the great Puka Nacua. So I think the Rams, as mentioned before, are also in a little bit of a tight spot if they find themselves at a deficit in this game, as the running attack is so prolific right now for Philly. And I think Eagles could win this one by margin. And it's sad because any other matchup this round or any other round for the Rams, and I would have been pretty confident they were going to the Super Bowl. The Eagles are sort of the one fly in the ointment that I think really ruins their party.
Yeah. Little worried about Mr. Stafford in the cold as well after seeing what he served up against San Francisco and the Jets towards the end of the season. But I'm with you there. Yeah, I think the Eagles win by margin. Okay, we are done. Don't forget to check out NBCSports.com for more information to help you with your wagers. Thanks to those watching on the NBC Sports YouTube channel. If you're listening to us in podcast form, don't forget to rate and subscribe. Also a reminder to find all your favorite NBC Sports shows on Amazon Music. Just head to amazon.com/NBC Sports. From myself and Drew, good luck this weekend.